Alright, so in this video what I'm going to do is I'm going to black out the splash screen and the boot text menu on this ASUS Chromebox. Now it's already been Linuxified or de-googled. That is the stock firmware replaced with Coreboot. So when it boots up, here's what we see. We see the little rabbit icon there and some boot text. Now what I want to have happen is I want just totally black until a program that I have set on this thing just automatically launches. So I'm trying to simulate kind of like a set-top box behavior, like a DVD player or a Blu-ray player. To do this, we need to first determine what type of hardware we have here. And this is an ASUS Chromebox 2 CN62. GUADO is the code name of the hardware. So with that in mind, we have a process to rebuild the firmware and then flash it. With that in mind, GUADO, I'm going to look this up and we're going to get that cooking. Now we're ready to work on creating this firmware to flash to the Chromebox. I have some documentation I whipped up from cobbling together how to do this. I have a laptop here running Ubuntu 22.04 LTS, clean installation. I run these commands here. One clones Mr. Chromebox's Coreboot repository, and we set up, install some components, some dependencies to do this. We change directory into Coreboot, the cloned repository folder. We run a couple of make commands to make some tools needed to rebuild the firmware. And here's the part where we need to determine what kind of hardware we have. The Acer C720 is this AURON Paine, P-A-I-N-E. That's what this is. The Chromebox I have is GUIDO. So we go into folder Coreboot configs. So Coreboot configs, and I think BDW is Broadwell, the Intel code name. So I go into folder BDW. Right there is the AURON Paine. That's this guy, but I want the GUADO. There it is right there. We're going to copy that configuration to the .config file. So I'm going to copy and paste this command here. Copy config /bdw /config, that config file. Copy. We'll open up a new terminal window here. Alright. So we do cd coreboot, and we want to copy config /bdw config dot, and then here's where I want that GUADO .ufi to the .config file. We hit enter, and then we need to run command make old def config. So copy and paste that in. Configuration written to home user coreboot.config. We need to replace the coreboot_logo.bmp with the bitmap of our choosing, which will just be a black bitmap so that the screen stays totally black. And to do that, I already did that with this one, so let me just verify. So we're going to move that, we're going to copy that to Coreboot documentation. So Coreboot documentation, and there it is right there. It's still just a black box. This is what it was originally, and we're replacing this with just black box, so everything on the screen remains black. So that's good there. Now we need to run this make menu config. So make menu config. So these are all the default values for this particular Chromebox hardware. I believe these are all configured by Mr. Chromebox, but we're going to change some values to black out the logo and the text at the bottom. So we go down to payload, hit enter, And then right here, if we go down from the very top, we go down 5 entries, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and hit enter. It says, please enter a string value for the URL to the Git repository for EDK2. This is Mr. Chromebox's repository for EDK2. Now I went ahead and I cloned his repository, and I blanked out the boot text menu in a .c file. We can take a quick look at that. In EDK2, UFI payload package, library, platform boot manager lib. There's this platform boot manager.c file, and if we open that file, and it's already been open here, but this this blank text here, that previously would say press escape for boot options or settings. I searched all files in the built folder for the text string boot options settings, and this C file was what I found as the culprit, as containing that. And so I just blanked it out with spaces. I might not even need the spaces, but I use spaces just in case. And the issue though is that once you modify that C source code, you can't just build it right from the local machine here. You need to actually make that change on the Git repository. So what we do here is I cloned his repository, I made that change, and then we use the link to my repository, to my forked version. So I'm just going to remove the Mr. Chromebox and put my username in there and hit OK. And then below that, the origin / UFI payload _ number, I believe this is just branch name. His was 2023-06, mine is 2023-04, I believe. Yeah, branch is UFI payload _ 2023-04. So we hit enter to that. These other options here, set the timeout for boot menu prompt. I'm going to change that to, I'm going to hit enter, and I'm going to change it from 5 to a 0. Because I'm pretty sure if you just hit escape as it boots up, it'll be a black screen anyway. You can still get into the boot menu even with a 0 delay. And use escape key for boot manager is set. If that wasn't set, then it would say press F2. Well, we didn't blank out the F2 text, we blanked out the escape text. So we need to make sure that the use escape key for boot manager is set. And I think that will do it. So I'm going to tab over to save and hit enter and enter again. And that saves that to home user coreboot.config. And I'm going to hit tab over to exit, and then I'm going to tab over to exit. And now we're ready to make this firmware file, this ROM file. So I'm going to type in make and hit enter. And we'll see if it builds it successfully here. If it's successful, it's going to put coreboot.rom file in the build folder. And then I can copy that to a flash drive. And then on the Chromebox, I'm going to boot that up. I'm going to make sure it's connected to the internet, and then I'm going to run Mr. Chromebox's firmware utility, and I'm going to tell it to restore stock firmware, and I'm going to specify this built ROM file as the ROM file to restore. I couldn't figure out what command to use to restore a ROM file just based on a single command using the program to update the ROM, but his script works well to do that if you just tell it what ROM file you want to flash to the system. So we'll let this do its thing building, and if it is successful, we'll copy this to the flash drive and proceed. Actually, while this is doing its thing, let's take a look at how it looks on the Chromebook here. This one's already been done. So right now the Chromebook is off. I'm going to hit the power key, and we'll see it flashes on. We don't see anything on the screen. And it's loading Linux right now. and it's going to auto run a program that I have written. Now the mouse I have enabled just because I was doing some debugging, but yeah, it runs my program right away. We'll power it off here. And if I press the power button and just tap escape, there I am into the BIOS. So this looks like it did work here. It says it built the firmware file. So that's just coreboot.rom. So I'm going to take my USB flash drive, plug it in, file manager here, and go to Coreboot, build, and the generated coreboot.rom. Copy that, and we'll paste it to the flash drive here. We'll take this flash drive over to the Chromebox and we'll give this a try. So we'll power on our Chromebox. So that's what we're going to be getting rid of. All right. I'm going to kill my program. And we'll switch back. Control-Alt-T, bring up a terminal. Plug in my flash drive. Alright, CD, media, user, 0. Let's copy Coreboot ROM to home folder. Okay, so we're going to sudo apt install curl, and then cd semicolon curl dash capital L capital O Mr. Chromebox dot tech slash firmware util.sh and then sudo bash firmware dash util.sh. So we confirm here we have the right hardware. We built the right firmware for this. So we're going to do option 2, restore stock firmware. So option 2 and enter. Flashing firmware can brick your device. Yeah, we know. Very important. Yeah, end of life already. Don't want to go back to Chrome. That's okay. We're not going to. You have a firmware backup on USB? Yes, I do. It is connected. Press enter. It found my SanDisk Cruiser Micro. That is number 1. Hit enter. And it found coreboot.rom. Coreboot.rom to confirm. It's now restoring that firmware file. Stock firmware successfully restored. Well, it really restored our rebuilt firmware file. Press enter to return to the main menu, and we're going to do reboot. R and enter, and we're rebooting. Moment of truth here. Think it's working. I see nothing but a black screen. There is a little cursor up there, a little text cursor. That might just be for the first run here, but we'll see. So it is working as expected, but let's try a reboot here, or a power off and back on. So we'll just hit the power button. That should turn it off. Yeah, there is a little cursor up there, but not a huge deal. Okay, let's see if we can get in the BIOS or the UEFI setup. So we press power. I'm just going to tap escape here. See if we can get in. Oh, we got into the grub, to grub. I think I figured it out here. So if I reboot, as soon as I see the screen pop on light gray, I hit escape. I get to the grub menu here. So we have Ubuntu, we have advanced options, and then we have UEFI firmware settings. If I arrow key down there and hit enter, I'm in. I have my boot menu, everything I need there. So I power off, power back on, black screen. And my program runs.